Welcome to Boombostic Health, where we challenge the business of healthcare and explore bold ideas that drive meaningful change. Hello, and welcome to episode 29 of Boombostic Health. I am here in the studio with my friend Val, who is the CEO of BocaBiolistics. Extremely excited to have him on here to talk about his journey in the healthcare industry, starting with diagnostics and moving it into more of the research and pharma space. Val, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Bradley. It's great to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, and I know Val and I have a common connection. Dr. John Mills, who is an outstanding entrepreneur, built a fantastic business called BioStorage Technologies, and before that was with Covance. So whenever Sir John Mills reaches out with his British accent and recommends somebody to be on the show, I jump at the chance. So really happy we got connected here, Val. And I think there's a lot of common ground between the things that I'm passionate about and what you're working on. So excited to hear more about it. Maybe just lead off with a little introduction about yourself and how you got into this industry.
Sure. So I got in the industry certainly post undergrad, where I worked for an organization up in New York called New York Blood Center. And at that time, my position was to support companies who would collaborate with diagnostic companies who are developing new diagnostic technologies or new lab tests. And at that time, it was regarding various diseases, in particular infectious diseases. So we would partner up with these companies such as Abbott and Roche and all these other big diagnostic companies, and we would provide these materials either gratis, free, or at a nominal cost. And so that spurred an idea where, wow, you could really make this into a true business where companies are looking to certainly shorten up their development times. Because I've seen it where not only are they scrambling to engage with companies like your blood center, but they're also scrambling to other laboratories and getting samples in order for them to validate their respective lab tests and assays. So it was critical for them to get these samples, and I felt that there was a business model here. There was an idea where I joined with a partner back in 1999, and I thought, well, this is something that I think would be great to not only help out these companies develop their respective research faster, but also as a viable business. So fast forward to today, we've built this fantastic business, and it's been quite a ride.
That's awesome. And you have a private equity partner at this point? Is that the kind of stage you're in?
Correct. So in early February of 2023, we partnered up with a Canadian-based middle market private equity group called the Clairvest Group. We met with that group in 2022 at the DIA, or Drug Information Association meeting, and they basically aligned with goals in terms of growth strategy, as well as what we intended to further develop the company in the future. It's been a great partnership since then, and certainly we're excited to see what things that we can accomplish together moving forward.
Okay, so just to boil it down to like simple terms, this is all about accelerating research to get new therapeutics to market quicker. Is that how we should think about it?
Yeah. So if you look at our business, so our business, Boca, is comprised of three business lines. So our first business line, where we first started at the gate, built a best of breed biobank. And ultimately what that means is we collected different types of tissue, whether it's blood, whether it's tissue, urine, all these biospecimens that are coming from human origin. And we would collect them and then store them in either freezers or refrigerators or ultra low freezers. So we made those specimens available for companies who are in various stages of development. And so we would support companies who are looking early on, where they're looking to discover a particular biomarker of sorts, all the way through R&D, all the way through regulatory submissions, where they'll be going through clinical trials and then submitting their data to the FDA. So we built this biobank that is pretty broad in terms of types of specimens. So we collect infectious disease, we collect folks from cardiology, we collect samples from patients who have cancer. And also what makes our biobank very unique is the fact that it's global scope. So we're collecting specimens from around the world. So we have clinical sites in the US, South America, Asia, in Europe, and in Africa. And what makes it interesting is the fact that the genetic differences and the variances of these different patients is certainly important nowadays, especially with personalized medicine. It becomes very mission critical to get a variety of different genetic variances and patient populations, and so that was very very important for us from the onset of developing this biobank, and so that was something that is we support not only the diagnostic development or lab test development, but also we help companies who are looking to do pharmaceutical research as well.
And some of this is probably getting into genomics and looking at biomarkers and how those relate to how people respond to different therapies. Is that fair?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think what's interesting now with certainly since 2000 in terms of this molecular revolution in regards to the technologies that have been developed, where we can drill down in terms of the genetic variances that are the different gene mutations that are exhibited by these tumor markers and the like. Where now the true sense of personalized medicine have come into play. And certainly, I think, in addition to the fact that what's quite exciting is this in this day that we have such a massive amount of data that's accumulated over time, and just really taking that metadata and really leveraging technology with AI or other sorts of technology really to drill down and make sense and see patterns of different biomarkers, different conditions, different comorbidities to really figure out a true picture of a patient's medical history.
So this gets into the fact also that we didn't used to in healthcare differentiate as much between one person's disease or another. We'd say this person has, for example, colon cancer, which is what my mom died from. And at that time, I think the ability to, which was back in 2000, the ability to say like what specific kind of cell is, what is the DNA construct that, and then how is that going to respond to treatment? It was more just, it's this kind of cancer. Everybody with this kind of cancer gets this kind of treatment. And so it was more of a, I don't know, almost like a trial and error in vivo with the patient. And it seems like now what we're getting to with the kind of research you're driving is to the level of saying, hey, exactly which treatment is going to help this specific patient based on these specific genetic mutations. Is that a fair way to think about it?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think more and more the fact of medication being or treatments being one size fits all is slowly going away. I mean, when you have a medication and the efficacy rate is less than 80% or less than 60% or 50%, there must be reasons for that. Certainly, to your point there, Bradley, I think that with genomics and really just ironing out a personalized medicine that would be targeting, and you would see much more a higher efficacy rate in that respect. I think that certainly comes into play, and that's where BocaBio comes in and really supporting that initiative for companies, not only on the biospecimen side, which is important, but we also are churning out data from our CRO component of our business, as well as our reference lab, and really getting that, sharing that data to the pharma companies who are developing these respective companion diagnostics and treatments.
So you were in a larger enterprise before you came over to Boca, fair? You were with the
That's
New
right.
York Blood, yeah. And so, what's if people think about the this idea of being part of an earlier stage growth company and changing the world, and how amazing that must be if you've never tried that before, and then sometimes people are able to make that shift from a larger entity that's more established to a smaller one. Seems like
Right.
you've done that really well. Like how's that been? What's the difference? Because a lot of people that watch this are probably in the seat of that bigger company thinking maybe I should go make a leap like Val did. But, what's the difference, and how have you managed that so well?
Well, that's a great question, because that just goes to show you in terms of like when folks ask me like what I do and the journey behind it. It's certainly one where it's has its ups and downs, if you will. Certainly, I would never change my experience in that. But yeah, I mean, taking that leap from a large organization, not for profit organization, and thinking that we can turn this particular business idea into a profitable enterprise. And so, yeah, from the early days, it was a huge leap. But number one, having this the security of being a part of a big organization to now having multiple hats, if you will, in a small organization. But I would say it was both, I would say, for lack of a better word, scary, but also exciting too, right? I mean, you're going in, but I felt that cutting my teeth in different things, whether it's working in the lab in one afternoon, and the next afternoon I'll be packing up the biospecimens, and in the other instance I'll be having a phone call with the client, selling these samples. It really shaped of who I am today for the company. But certainly it was a very, very memorable experience, but one that definitely has its challenges. Even to this day, we have over 40 strong within the company. Certainly gone are the days when it was just myself and my other partner, when we were in the storefront somewhere in Fort Lauderdale, a very small office. And so now that we have the private equity backing with ClairVest, I am quite excited for the future. And so meeting you folks that share that same vision of really making an impact in the development of these new therapies, these new lab tests is certainly exciting. I think the pandemic, if anything, has shown some of the weaknesses that we've seen in healthcare delivery, whether it's the chain supply issue, right? Or the fact of folks that are waiting in line to be tested for COVID. And so there are multitude of different things that will be changing in the future, whether it's at-home tests or that's already here, or further development of that, or decentralized clinical trials, which are already seen in the public arena, or other things that will certainly bring it much more at home rather than going to see a hospital, going to a clinic and the like. So I think laboratory medicine in general, Bradley, I think has seen a renaissance, if you will, whether it's having folks being monitored for, say, oxygen level with a wearable, whether it's an Apple Watch or some other device. All these things come into play where you couple that with technology. I think we're just at the very early ages of really, like I said, a renaissance in terms of our industry and how we can support our industry.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. If you look at the way that an individual's health journey plays out today versus 10, 20 years ago, there are all these ways to capture information about that journey. And it's really for the purpose of being able to prevent future illness and the ability to help people get better faster. And if you start using artificial intelligence, you actually are able to provide this insight that just never was really possible before. So I think the word renaissance is a really good word that you're using. I think this is a once in multiple lifetimes moment where you've got this convergence of all these different factors. And you jump 10 years ahead. You were talking about things happening in the home and coming closer to the patient, becoming less centralized. What's that future like? Remember when we were, I'm not sure how old you are, but when I was a kid, we would watch the Jetsons, right? And the stuff on
Same
the
here.
Jetsons where you'd pull up the phone and you'd see the guy on the phone, and it was like, no way is that ever going to be possible, right? How could you ever have somebody's actual real time, video come through your phone? And now that's just commonplace. Kids are born with a little, FaceTime capability that they use all the time, like it's no big deal. What do you
Absolutely.
think about in your space and in this acceleration to personalized precision medicine? What does this look like in 10 years? How are people going to be wrapped with these different services versus today where they're having to go, physically somewhere all the time?
Yeah, I think the work that we're doing here. I think that ultimately we want to speed up the development of these technologies, and I see that end result of our work, whether it's through it's through the sample procurement coupled with all that metadata associated with it. I think it will just certainly speed up the development process. In turn, make these respective products, whether it's laboratory or diagnostic tests or therapeutics, faster to market. In which case, at the end result, in 10 years, hopefully we'll see vast improvements in patient outcomes. Ultimately, that's it. I mean, I think that when you have a situation where the patients, it's tailor made for that respective patient, I think, and seeing better improved patient outcomes is the end goal. And I think that in terms of seeing medicine in general, I think the focus has been in recent years where it's become more preventative than reactive, right? Be able to diagnose particular biomarkers early on, in which case there could be some lifestyle changes of that respective patient. Those kinds of things, I think, is much more meaningful. And certainly in that respect, also, not only are you able to reduce costs, but ultimately improve patient outcomes. I think that's where ultimately where Boca's role in terms of being that bridge between these innovations of these respective companies come into play. And so I think that's what the ultimate goal is for everyone.
And it sounds like you're somewhat unique at Boca in that you have this global capability. Is that right? I mean, because other folks do specimen management. How do you talk about the distinguishing characteristics of Boca relative to the competition?
Yeah, and that's an interesting point, Bradley. I mean, the fact is that we do focus on that. I mean, early on in my career, we would look at different genetic strains of, say, hepatitis, say C, for example, or for that matter, HIV. And in the U.S. and in Western Europe, you only found one strain of HIV. But then, the development requires to catch all the strains. And so our focus has always been global scope. A matter of fact, a fun fact, back in the day, we engaged with an investigator in Western Africa who in turn I get a call from the CDC, one of the CDC folks, scientists saying, you're working with our investigator too. We're competing with the same patient cohort. So, it goes to show you that,
Yeah.
but it was a friendly banter, but one that really showed like scope, the reach of what we're trying to achieve and going into different pockets. I mean, like I would say we were very instrumental in helping companies navigate through the time when there was a Zika outbreak in 2016, I feel, where you had companies from around the world looking to really develop their respective assays. And so they came to us on that. Or for recent outbreaks in monkeypox or in malaria or dengue, you're not going to find that in say a clinic somewhere in Fort Lauderdale or in Boca. You're going to have to go out into one of our clinical sites, whether it's in Western Africa or it's in Southeast Asia, to get those respective patient populations.
So do you have staff that go out to physically to those types of locations as well, or is it more of a partnership with
It is a
the
partnership.
clinical research site? Okay.
Yeah, we're fortunate enough to have investigators within our network sign up with us and agree to work with us on that respect. Yeah, it is a partnership with a variety of different. It could be a single practice clinician all the way through a large rural or urban hospital that we sign up with and engage in a protocol or collection study.
So what's next for Boca? Where do you see things going over the next 5 years, let's say?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the goal for us is really just to still look at our business. Really, I think there's tremendous amount of work to be done, as I mentioned, in terms of where I see the future lies in regards to personalized medicine. I think that as you had mentioned earlier today, in terms of what afflicted your mother, for me also, I take it personally too, where it's become a mission on my end, on a personal level and professional level, that we really make an impact on oncology. And we've been doing everything, with all these different indications, but certainly my passion has been to really making a difference in regards to accelerating the research for folks who are developing these therapeutics, these cutting edge therapeutics that will help out a broad number of folks out there with different malignancies. But in regards to Boca, I see that as far as really looking at not only on the biospecimen side, but on the data side as well. I think there's a point in time where there will be modeling, if you will, where there will be experiments done on a virtual level of just all the clinical data that's harvested. But one of the initiatives here is really to see about connecting the dots from the oncologist, the surgeon oncologist, the primary physician, aggregate all that data, analyzing it, leveraging technology, whether it's AI or whatnot, just assemble it and making sense of that, seeing the patterns. And so that's what we're trying to achieve, not only continuing growing the other business lines, but certainly seeing that data being such a very, very important component of the business. And so that's where I see the future in terms of further development.
Yeah, we see a lot of promise out there in the digital twin concept, right? Where instead of just having everything be a experiment or trial and error with where you're almost treating the patient like a guinea pig, candidly, you could make it so it was so precise that you knew you were bringing the absolute best possible therapy. And hey, today, I think it's worth noting there's some amazing treatments that are out there that just a few short years ago weren't there. And it's because of the work that folks at Boca do. I'm sure that you're already contributing to some of those advances. And hey, hopefully at some point we see that cancer can all, be managed as like a chronic disease or even be cured. And in those scenarios, it's not possible unless you have this combination of data and biospecimens and these advanced technologies. So I certainly appreciate all the great work that you're doing and the fact that you have committed your career to what's a little bit more dynamic a world than where you were before, but sounds like it's something that you're really, really bullish on.
Yeah, I see that. And, one of the things that really drives me in terms of and the passion behind the work is ultimately, the folks that we engage with, in this case, are the clinicians that we work with in our network. But also, I see that that's also equally important. Also, and actually is the most important thing is who are our stakeholders of the work that we do. Because I look at it this, Bradley, where the samples that we collect, the data that we test, that we collect, and present that to the sponsors, and in turn that they get their respective products, whether it's a laboratory assay or lab test or a therapeutic, or the stakeholders. That's the patients. That's us. I look at that. The work that we're doing can ultimately affect our parents, our relatives, ourselves. So that's where I see the ultimate end goal is. And so that's what really drives and motivates me and my team to really do this type of work day in and day out.
Well, you clearly have a great passion for this and a great team working on it. I'm so glad that Dr. Mills introduced us, Val. Congratulations on all the great work you've done up to this point. Would love to continue the conversation moving forward and have you back on as you have additional stories to share. So thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Bradley. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you, everybody in the Boombostic Health community. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great day.